Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about how you should not abandon people who've left the Catholic faith. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti, Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et secula seculorum. Amen. Before we begin, I wanted to show you one of the shirts that you can buy from my YouTube channel. It says the Catholic Church, and there's got a cross, and then over here it says established 33 AD. I'm sorry that I can't zoom back there. You could type it there. So if you're interested in that shirt, I sell those over at my t-shirt store. So click on the link in the episode notes. All right. So look, this episode goes to, I would say, Christian Protestants as well. If somebody in your life converts to Catholicism or Orthodoxy, don't abandon them. And sadly, I've seen this played out. And I don't understand this. I mean, on one level I understand it, but on one level I don't understand it. And I will say that and this is not to malign the Protestants, I have seen Protestants turn their back completely on Catholics who have turned to the Catholic faith more than I've seen Catholics who turn their back on people who go to the Protestant faith. And we have a previous episode here how when you look at who's leaving who, it's typically low information voter Catholics or Catholics that are poorly catechized and don't know the faith or think they know the faith. They're normally the ones who are poached to the Protestants, especially the evangelical churches. And then if you look at who's leaving the evangelical to Catholic, it's normally the higher, more knowledgeable Protestants, especially the ones that even ministers and pastors. The Coming Home Network is a well-known ministry that interviews a lot of these people, but typically it's those who know the Bible and certainly know church history that eventually go to Catholicism. You look at some of the most well-known apologists in the Catholic world, a lot of them are former Protestants, but this is anecdotal. But either way, I think it really undermines a lot of things. So let's just tackle the Catholics who turn their back on Protestants or turn their back on Catholics if they go Protestant. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? If you think about it, if these are friends, even if they're only friends you've known for a year, but if these are friends you've had your whole life, and your friend tells you, I'm going to be Lutheran, the few that are moving to the mainline Protestant denominations, I'm going to Methodism, or if they're going to go to the mega church, how do you think it benefits your relationship to shun them, eschew them? It won't, right? It's not going to help your relationship at all with them. And I would say more importantly, how are you evincing Christian virtue or Catholic virtue in this case by just getting rid of that person for what they've done? Now, lots of times there's history here. You're going to see it as a personal attack on you. Oh, she's leaving the faith. This hurts me. So I'm going to get back at them by cutting them out of my life, or you'll say that they're toxic or something like that. But ultimately, I think that's intellectual dishonesty. First of all, it's not personal. They're not personally attacking you. They're choosing to leave the faith for whatever reason. And we talked about it here. Most Catholics who leave the faith is because they either were poorly catechized, but normally it's connected with poor catechism mixed with they felt slighted by a priest, or they felt slighted by somebody that was Catholic in their life, or they just didn't make a connection with the church. The faith is not relevant to their life. And you combine that with poor catechesis, then they're going to go to a mega church where it's all music and feel, emotion. And of course, the mega churches will remarry them if one of the reasons why they left the church in the first place is because they divorced their spouse and want to remarry. But either way, you're not evincing good Christian virtue by leaving your friend. And the thing is too, look, lots of times when we're like a walking poster boy and poster girl for the Catholic faith. And when you do something that even opens the door for anti-Catholics to attack you, it just makes you look bad. So if they already feel like Catholics are intolerant, especially in social teachings, and just hard-headed and legalistic, aside from we worship Mary, all these things like this, then you're just reinforcing the bad ideal by shunning them from your life. Because in good Christian virtue, we should keep them in our lives. Not necessarily as a way to bring them back, But that's what we should do. Look, if somebody is truly toxic or a danger to you, let's say they're an alcoholic or they're truly toxic, yes. Like the church has talked about it as well. The church has never taught that if you're in a relationship where your spouse is beating you to death, you have to be in that relationship. Christian teaching on that is you're married to one person the rest of your life, but you can separate from them in the danger of harm. But if you're ever to have sex again with somebody, it has to be with your spouse until they pass away. And Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians. Of course, Christ talks about this. Once we are married, that's the one person you're going to be with. You can separate if you need to, but that's it. So if you just stop being friends with this person, it kind of reinforces what they might already think about Catholics. And how is that good? So if you have somebody in your life who's like, I'm going to go evangelical, you can ask them, do the Socratic method. Well, why are you going to do this? Da, 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 da. And then you can always encourage them, like, look, I think you have a misunderstanding of the Catholic faith, or whatever it is. But if their heart is set on this, say, okay, you're my friend. I will always be your friend. Always be your friend. Always be present in their life. And while you're being present in their life, always exhibit good Catholic or Christian virtue, compassion, sympathy, and always have an open channel for them. Now let's look at the Protestants. So there are Protestants who, when a fellow Protestant leaves the faith, they just shun them completely. And I think from the Protestant perspective, and again, if you're a Protestant or a convert, post in the comments, I think a lot of it is because they feel like there's an apostasy, right? Because a lot of Protestants don't even think that Catholics are Christians, which is mind-boggling given that we created the church and we decided Bible canonicity and we gave everybody the doctrines of the Trinity and the hypostatic union, which pretty much every Protestant agrees with. But they don't understand that, right? Again, it goes back to poor catechesis and a lot of misinformation that Protestants have about Catholics growing up. So when a Protestant shuns a Catholic or a convert to Catholicism, sometimes it's in their world, they either A, can't have a non-Christian in their life, or B, they think that they're trying to be cruel to be kind, like I'm going to shun this person because it's going to make them come back. And ultimately, again, it's lack of Christian virtue. Just like I said, when Catholics shun Catholics who become Protestants, what are you demonstrating? You're demonstrating hardness of heart, you're demonstrating intolerance. And the better thing to do is demonstrate Christian virtue and be like, look, I don't understand why you're converting to the Catholic faith, but I'm open to understanding why you did it. And of course, I'm still going to be your friend. I will always be your friend. And that's what both parties should do when there's a conversion. Is it ultimately reflects poorly on you if you end a friendship simply because somebody converts to another denomination. And plus, it's short-sighted because this is a friendship you might have had for years, if not decades. And you're going to throw away that friendship out of this righteous anger, this righteous indignation that you know better and they're betraying you. They're not betraying you. They're following their conscience. Martin Luther used that as his argument in the 1520s when he was coming up with all his doctrines. He's like, I'm following my conscience. And the Catholic Church would say the same thing. Tells people to follow their conscience. Now, preferably your conscience needs to be informed, but it says follow your conscience. So if there's any like Protestants who start realizing that the Catholic Church is the true church, it would say follow your conscience. But we must follow our conscience at all times. And so abandoning friendships over this is, I get why they do it, but it's ultimately myopic. It ultimately makes anyone who is doing the shunning look intolerant and unchristlike. And in the long run, it doesn't really help you, because if you want this person to come back to the faith, how are they more likely to come back if you're not even in their faith and you're reinforcing Christian intolerant stereotypes by shunning them in the first place? The better thing is have them in your life. Don't treat them any different, and don't be proselytizing to them all the time and every conversation is about religion and shoving it down their throat. No, be friends and be the way you've always been. And if religion comes up, you can talk about it in charity and smiling and not just being heavy-handed, and talk to each other, and then maybe the person will come back. But either way, these are tactics that I've recommended too. Like if you have a family member who leaves the faith, or you have to go to possibly a friend's wedding that's an irregular wedding, or they're getting remarried, or it's a homosexual wedding. These are kind of the same tactics, and I always say it's the same tactics I've talked about on what are the most effective ways to bring people back to the faith. It's not being heavy-handed, and it's not proselytizing. These in the long run, even though you're patting yourself on the back with your righteous anger, ultimately, in the long run, does not work. The best thing, the most effective tool to bring people to the faith, return to the faith, or to convert, is demonstrating good Christian, modeling good Christian virtue, and demonstrating how your faith has changed you. And then you will be a pillar, like a pillar of smoke in Exodus. People will see that, and that's going to make them find attractive, not being Pharisaic and judgmental. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.